Okay.
We good?
We are live on YouTube right now. So, Mr. Chair, you may start.
Thank you. I want to first thank everybody for being present today, full council and all our supporting officers. Thank you so much. Please indulge. It's a whole new world we're living in with this Zoom thing. So your patience. We have a fairly full agenda here, including 2 public hearings. So we're going to start first with the first public hearing, May 21st. This is a public hearing to receive comment regarding the Comprehensive Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPER, for the program year 2019.
So, Janelle?
Janelle?
Okay. So as Chairman Carey just mentioned, this public hearing is required by HUD for the submission of the fiscal year 2019 CAPER for the Community Development Block Grant. The 2019 Comprehensive Annual Performance and Evaluation Report was posted on the city's website, city's Facebook, and placed on the front desk in room 218 on March 2nd, 2020 for viewers. The CAPER reported that in fiscal year 2019, the City of Lebanon received an entitlement in the amount of $648,962 and program income in the amount of $22,926. In 2019, Cdbg monies was used to fund the following projects: crime prevention, administration, code enforcement, which includes the salary of 1 full-time and 2 part-time employees, housing rehab and first-time homebuyer program that assisted 3 emergency rehabs, street improvements, and water main improvements. I will now open it up if anyone has any comments or questions.
Any comments or questions from council?
Can I just ask, how does the first-time homebuyer program link in with this?
So the city receives funding from both Cdbg, and then we also apply for home grants, which actually right now, the Lebanon County Redevelopment Authority has a home grant that is actually for the entire county for the first-time homebuyer program. But so we have additional funding that we could use with Cdbg to fund the first-time homebuyer program with down payment assistance.
And are realtors able to reach out to the city to link up with clients that they may be working with?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of the times, if they don't come directly to the city, they'll come to the Redevelopment Authority because they also administer the first-time homebuyer program for the city with our Cdbg funds. But yes, they can come to me. I can answer any questions, and then I could also redirect them to the Redevelopment Authority if they want more information.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the public or has media signed on yet,
Yes.
Mayor? Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Laura. Any questions from media or the public? Okay, well, hearing none, I call this public hearing closed. We have a second public hearing, May 21st, 2020, and it is a public hearing to receive comment on the proposed amendment to the Cdbg annual plan for the program year 2019. Mayor, did you want to tell us about that?
I'll let Janelle.
Okay.
Okay, so this public hearing is for the City of Lebanon's draft substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan to add community development block grant coronavirus funds. On March 27, 2020, the United States Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. The bill provided $5 billion for Cdbg to rapidly respond to COVID-19 and the economic and housing impacts caused by it, including the expansion of community health facilities, child care centers, food banks, and senior services. The city of Lebanon will receive $391,481 in Community Development Block Grant coronavirus funding. A substantial amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan is required, and usually a 30-day comment period is required. However, HUD has submitted waivers for requirements provided that no less than 5 days are provided for public comment on each substantial amendment. The CDBG CD funds allocated under the CARES Act may be used for a range of eligible activities that prevent and respond to the spread of infectious diseases such as COVID-19. The proposed activities must meet an eligible national objective as required by CDBG regulations. These include benefiting low to moderate income persons and meet an urgent need. City staff is recommending to allocate the funds as follows: $352,333 to small business assistance and $39,148, which is 10% for the administration of the program. In addition, for the purpose of expected use of the CV fundings, the CARES Act eliminates the cap on the amount of funds a grantee can spend on public services, removes the requirement to hold in-person public hearings in order to comply with national and local social gathering requirements, and allows grantees to be reimbursed for COVID-19 response activities regardless of the date the costs were inquired. I will now open it up for comments and questions.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, I'd like to just talk for a minute about what the city would like to use the monies for.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. So, to protect the health and safety of residents, the governor had ordered non-essential small businesses to shut their doors and essential businesses like restaurants to immediately and radically change their business model. So these policies have created incredible challenges for our small business owners. Businesses that give Lebanon its unique identity, filling storefronts, creating jobs, and contributing to the economic vibrancy that has made this city such an amazing place. So the city was notified that we could potentially receive approximately $391,000 of additional CDBG monies that must be used specifically to respond to COVID-19 and the economic and housing impacts caused by it, just as Janelle had explained. So pending approval from HUD, the Lebanon Small Business Recovery Assistance Fund, which is what we would like to call it, would support the city's mom and pop businesses with annual revenues less than $1 million that provide key services for people who work and live in the city. These business owners are the most vulnerable to the economic impacts of the COVID-19 crisis, and few of these businesses have the ability to operate via virtual settings. Federal resources, including the CARES Act, provide many very limited benefit to the smallest business owners. And we would like to offer recovery assistance to these businesses located in the city, particularly those, and we would give priority to these, who could not access federal or state COVID-19 emergency funding by providing forgiveness loans. It would be a 3-tier program, up to $7,500 for businesses with an annual revenue up to $1 million. We anticipate that maybe 50 to 100 businesses in the city would obtain funding from this Small Business Recovery Assistance Fund. We recognize that some of the small businesses in our community will face non-recoverable losses and are not in the position to take on more debt. Therefore, we recommend forgiveness loans. Eligible use of the funds would include working capital to restart non-essential businesses or sustain essential business operations, like paying rent, utilities, payroll, and other uses that would be approved by CDBG guidelines. And Community First Fund, you've heard us talk about them many times. It's a private, independent, nonprofit community development financial institution, a CDFI. Typically, they provide capital in places where it is not usually available. They seek to create positive change in a community by providing entrepreneurs with access to business development loans for projects that generate jobs, create affordable housing, and help to revitalize communities. The city is going to partner with Community First Fund, who will act as the intermediary of the fund by processing application intake, providing technical assistance, preparing loan documents, disbursements, and then of course evaluation for the loan forgiveness part of it. So upon approval by City Council, the city would start working on finalizing this program's details, promoting the program, and hopefully obtain approval from HUD to expend the monies as we proposed here this evening. So we believe funds potentially could be dispersed in July.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a tremendous opportunity that can help so many of the businesses and also so many of the people who live in the city that work in these businesses do. So, you know, it's a great step forward to put this plan together. Thank you. Does
So,
anyone?
Mayor, Laura does have a question.
Yes.
I apologize. You usually ask council first. I jumped in front of you. So go ahead.
Mayor, you said that the Community First is basically, they're going to administer this, or
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yes, you have to meet certain guidelines and requirements to administer a program like that when it comes to loaning. And again, they're forgiveness loans, and the criteria will be actually pretty minimal because we want to do what we can to get money into the small, the hands of the smallest business.
Sure. So my question is, so they would actually be tracking to make sure that everything's being done correctly with the,
Yes.
on both sides. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from council?
I have one question regarding eligibility criteria. Obviously, we talked about the revenue limitation, not receiving other federal funding. Has there been any thought to any other limitations that would exclude anyone?
Well, actually, they are really, priorities. So if you have not received funding from any other federal or state agency, you would have a higher priority than a business that did receive that funding. If there's going to be like a period of time where people can put in their applications. And then once we say, okay, here are all the applications, now they'll be reviewed and scored. And so if you haven't received any money from a federal or state agency, you would receive a higher score. But that doesn't mean that you may not be able to get some money depending on how many businesses apply.
Mm-hmm.
And the tiers are, so like for a business that has annual revenue of $100,000 to $250,000, like the really small business, their forgivable loan would be up to $2,500. The next tier would be for $250,001 up to $500,000 of revenue. They would be able to get a forgiveness loan of $5,000. And then for any business that made $500,001 to $1 million, they would get potentially $7,500. And then I did talk about the eligible use of the funds. And again, we haven't finalized all this, but basically the reasons for forgiveness would be that the number of employees that they were able to retain or added during a restart, proof that the loan was used in the manner requested. So if they say, I want to use it to pay 1 month's rent, and then they show us proof that they paid 1 month's rent. So it's going to be fairly, I don't know if easy is the right word, but not difficult to meet the requirements, because we want it to be easy, because we just really want to be able to help. Again, a lot of these really small businesses, sometimes it could be 1 employee or 2 employees, very minimal. They don't have a lot of documentation, and so we just want to, that they have rent or a mortgage.
Yeah.
So if they can prove that, hey, here's my rent for 1 or 2 months, I mean, it's pretty, that simple.
Mayor, you had also mentioned about residency, or am I confusing? There's not a residency requirement for the individuals. It's just
No.
their
the
business, of course, in the city.
Yes,
Okay,
that would be correct.
making sure. That might be an added if they have a business and are residents of the city, but
That wasn't something that we talked about. But if it's something that you wanted to add, I can talk to them. I don't know if it's.
no, I'm not saying that is.
Okay, yeah, I don't know if it's allowed.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm looking for that.
Okay,
I think for a lot of really small businesses, this could make the difference between them getting back on their feet and going, or deciding I just can't dig out enough of this hole. So I think this is a great start for a lot of places. And keep it simple, make it fun, Any other questions from council?
When will people be able to apply for this?
well, if council would approve this on Tuesday night, then we would finalize the details with Community First Fund and, get the program out there and start promoting it. So fairly quickly, I would think.
Okay.
Community First Fund is administering several funds for other cities. So I think we're like third on the list here to actually have them process the loans and disperse. So we think it would probably be in July.
For
Before
the disbursement?
disperse-
July would be disbursement.
Yeah.
And
We're
are they
hoping
applying? I'm sorry.
that we could promote it the whole month of June and give them time to apply. And again, I don't think it's going to be real, a lot of documentation. They'll talk to someone at Community First Fund via telephone interview, and they're very extremely helpful because we all want to get this money out. So it's not going to be burdensome.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from the media?
So I have Laura.
Okay.
Go ahead, Laura.
Hi there. Hello.
Hello.
Big shout out to Cheryl Gibson. I fell asleep binge watching season 2 of Dead to Me. So thank you for the phone call. I've been up since 3 a.m. I only have 2 episodes left. But my question is, can a business, you mentioned, Mayor, the tiers of the business revenue versus how much they could apply for. Could they apply for more and pay that back in a traditional way? Or is that the top end of what they could get?
No, that would be the top end. We're just having 3 tiers for depending on the size of the business. We want to try and help as many businesses as we can. Now, if we find for some reason that the businesses, which I don't think this is reality, but don't need the money or they don't want to apply for the money, then maybe we would regroup and see if we would allow another round of funding by the same business. But I really anticipate that we'll be able to spend this money fairly quickly.
And would there be any conditions under which a loan wouldn't be forgiven I mean, this sounds almost more like, instead of calling it a loan, almost like a grant program.
It's almost, but we need to be accountable to HUD. So we do have to make sure that it is used for the business. So if someone took the money and went on vacation to, Clearwater Beach, instead of paying their rent on their business, yeah, it would not be forgiven.
Okay.
So it's pretty close to a grant, but we want to be accountable. We need to be accountable. So, yeah.
Just, do you have a rough ballpark? I mean, how many small businesses are there in the city? Do you have any idea?
I do. We had pulled a report right before the unbeknownst to us, of course, of the coronavirus, and we pulled a report. So right before it hit, we had 1,306 businesses.
Okay. Well, very good. That sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor, I have another question. So if a business is so far burdened from what has happened with the coronavirus and the shutdown, and they apply for this grant, but they still cannot stay open, can they still apply for a grant even though it looks like they're going to have to close? Can they still apply and still pay down some of that, expense that they've incurred throughout all of this?
I would have to talk to Community First Fund, but I don't think they could.
Okay.
Part of the interview, it's to make sure that this business is either going to successfully restart, as much as you can be assured of that, for at least a few months, or to help them maintain operations for a few more months. I think they're looking at it for a couple months duration, but again, we haven't finalized those details with Community First Fund. But it can't be used to pay back rent. It can only be used to pay, rent in the future. So I would think that when it comes, I'm not sure about if they needed to do, although now they're saying if you were closed for 7 days, you just need to do a standard cleaning. You don't need to do anything special because the virus would have died, after that amount of time. But if someone did need to do some type of major recleaning, if they maintained operations and they need to do a major recleaning because they did have a COVID-19 case, this could be used for that. So I don't think, I know for sure not rent. It can't go to back rent. I don't know about other previous expenditures, but I would think not. But yeah, as a part of the interview process in applying, they're going to be asking those questions. And a lot of these smaller businesses that don't have a lot of documentation, they should not be concerned about applying for this, because those are the businesses that we're trying to help. We're trying to help the businesses that don't have an accountant to prepare their financial documents. They're just running a little small-time mom and pop operation that is extremely appropriate and necessary for our downtown or the city as a whole. And we want to make sure that they continue and that, we have those small businesses after we get through this pandemic.
If something were to happen, say we have a spike or something, and then we get into this whole situation where people are still not going out and the business would have to close in 6 months, are they going to be on the hook for having to pay back any of this?
Again, those are details that we need to finalize. I think it's going to be a couple months duration that they would have to stay open.
Okay.
But we haven't finalized that yet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from public, media, council? Anybody? Okay, then I declare this public hearing closed. Okay, we're going to move on to our pre-council agenda, and we're going to start our pre-council meeting May 21st, 2020. And first thing on our agenda is assignment of prayer, and that will go to Brother Joe. Thank you, sir. Everyone has received via email minutes from February 24th and from April 27th. So they're for your to download and take a look at. Also, a budget report has been sent out from January 1st through April 30th, 2020. Mayor, would you like to bring us up to date, please?
Yes. So in comparing April of 2019 to April of this year, it's representing a little more than 33% of the budget year completed. April 2019 saw more than 36% of revenue receipts, compared to not quite 28% in 2020. Expenditures were 24% approximately in both years. And to provide some very brief summary points, the following budget line items have experienced the most impact, and I'm talking about revenues. So and this was up to the end of April. Our real estate taxes are down about $800,000. Rental property license down about 18,000. Vehicle code violations, 28,000. Ordinance violations by police, down about 3,000. Interest income, we noticed it took a significant cut in the rate of about 50% a couple months ago. So we're down about $6,000, and we'll probably be, unless things would change, probably only receive about half of that interest income for the year. Our rent of buildings, because we can't rent to gatherings, experienced a decrease of $6,000. Our parking lot rentals, a lot of people canceled their parking spaces. We're down overall for all the lots by 8,200. We didn't receive our recycling grant yet. I don't know if we will get that. That's $38,000. Our liquor control board, that's down about 2,000. Subdivision land development fees, about 1,200. Zoning permits, 2,000. Building permits, 12,000. And our meter revenue overall for all the meters is down $21,000. So we're going to be
Sounds like a
hurt.
great time.
Oh, and of course, the big one, our largest source of revenue, earned income tax. We're not going to know, well, we know we're down, but for the budget report ending April, there wasn't there was a decrease, but not, it's going to be the May report when we really see that hit. And the one we'll really know for sure will be the first week in July when we get the first quarterly for EIT. So that's going to be huge. But for right now, this is where we are.
Okay. Any comments or questions on that budget report right now? Okay, thank you, Mayor, for the update.
You're welcome. Mr. Chair.
Hang in there. I know you're being I know you're tightening all the belts that you can. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can, could we take Charlie next instead of Janelle?
That would be fine. We're going to do a presentation of the zoning ordinance then. And this is terrible. I can't pronounce Charles' last name. Help me out, Charles.
Let's unmute him.
Okay.
Okay, now try.
Okay.
Okay.
Charles, thank you.
Please call me Charlie. The name's pronounced Schmale.
Schmale. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, and he's the community planning and zoning consultant for Urban Research and Development Corporation from Bethlehem, and he's come to bring us up to date on this new zoning ordinance. Thank you, Charles, for coming.
Thank you very much. If I can give you a short summary of what's in the draft, and we'd like to hear any questions or comments after that. We went through all areas of the city throughout the city zoning map and looked for places where we could promote economic development, make it easier to start a new business, recognize existing business areas in a more comprehensive manner. So a big part of the zoning ordinance was very much pro-economic development to streamline the process for desirable types of businesses in the right locations. And there were a lot of nonconformities. There were a lot of businesses that had been there for many years, but were not allowed under the current zoning, which causes complications for them and hassles for the city. So by creating more, for instance, more neighborhood commercial districts, where we were able to reduce the number of non-conforming businesses and make it easier for everybody to expand and adjust. The big reason why we have zoning is to protect residential neighborhoods, and that was a big emphasis of the process. We tried to promote types of housing that's more likely to be owner occupied in many areas. In general, just to address a lot more types of land uses and types of building uses that were not addressed in the current ordinance. It's not a huge revolutionary change in the zoning map from what you have. It's more a comprehensive update of everything. There's one new proposed residential district, which is called residential medium low density. That was mainly applied to places that had been medium density in their zoning, but they were primarily composed of singles and twins. And so we felt a need to create a new district to recognize those blocks. The central business district, the downtown, one of the big changes there proposed is to make sure that any new construction that happens has to occur close to the sidewalk. We don't want a situation where someone does a lot of demolition and builds a strip mini mall in the back of the lot with a big parking lot in front. Because we really want to promote that pedestrian orientation on Cumberland Street and other streets in the downtown. Any residences in the central business district would have to be upper story. You could not just build a brand new apartment building without having some street level commercial. The light industrial commercial district would be applied to most of the existing industrial areas in the city. The idea there is to provide a flexible range of uses to make it easier to reuse some of the older buildings and some of the older sites. So you could either do a range of light industrial uses or you could do commercial uses. And if you're on the edge of the light industrial commercial district next to a residential district, there are some opportunities in the draft to convert an existing industrial building into residential uses, which is a very common activity nowadays. And then we have the general industrial commercial. It's only 2 sites, the scrapyard in the West End and part of the old Bethlehem Steel Complex. That's where we meet our legal obligations under state law to provide for the most intensive uses. So that's where we allow for asphalt plants, chemical plants with proper controls. That's where we put adult uses that we're required to have somewhere in the city under federal law. The floodplain ordinance had to be updated as part of federal mandates. There's a new floodplain map that the FEMA has released, and that's included in the draft. Historic demolition. The draft includes provisions in the center of town on the most historic blocks for approval of demolition. I believe that goes through City Council for approval, or is it zoning hearing board? I forget which. But we have a map called Historic District Overlay. It does not regulate a lot of routine things. It does not regulate colors. It does not regulate signs. It does not regulate doors or windows or roofs. It only regulates the demolition. And in those areas, people have to prove that there's a good reason for the demolition. It doesn't say you cannot do demolition. It says that you need to come to a public meeting and prove the rationale for why the demolition is needed. There's a few other things that are addressed to bring things up to date. We're proposing to allow live-work units. That's where there's flexibility in someone having a business combined with their own residence, and there's not strict limits on how you use the space. In other words, if you want to have an artist studio, you can mix in your business activities with your residents throughout the whole unit, and you don't have to limit it to a certain percentage of the site. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight that short-term rentals has been a big issue in a lot of communities in Pennsylvania. The intent is to allow by right what the average resident wants to do when they want to rent out a bedroom every weekend. If they want to visitors to the area, that's fine, but they can't turn their house into a hotel where there's no permanent resident and they're repeatedly rating it out to people from outside the area on a short-term basis. That's the highlights of some of the things in the draft ordinance, and I'm available for any questions and comments you may have.
Okay, thank you so much, Charlie. Just hang in here. We're going to have some questions for you. Questions from council?
I have a question. So if people were to have a business in their home, you said that this makes it easier for people to do a live-work situation. Is there a requirement for parking for clients? I know that our neighborhoods struggle with parking as it is.
If the business does not involve people coming to the home, there's no additional parking requirement. If it does have persons coming to the home, then there is a parking requirement.
And they would have to create their own lot, or?
You can do it within a certain distance of the property. So you could rent a space, for instance, from a church or from your neighbor, or a vacant lot. there's some flexibility to meet the parking requirements throughout the city because many of the lots are small.
Could there be a situation where someone could turn a backyard into a parking lot? Would that be approved?
Yes, there are some
If
limits
they're
on that,
joining
but
an
yes,
alley in the back.
you could
So
turn the
that-
backyard into a parking lot within limits. I mean, you can't pave the whole backyard, but yes.
Are there any provisions for approval from neighbors?
If there is a variance or a special exception going to the zoning hearing board, the neighbors get notified.
Okay,
Just a by right use, there's no notification.
okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if there's no additional questions from council, Laura does have a question.
okay, sure. Miss Laura?
Okay, hi, I'm here. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Two questions, actually, two quick ones. Charlie, you mentioned that business owners would be allowed to turn upper floors of their buildings into apartments or some sort of a residence. I'm presuming that if they did something like that, it would have to comport with ADA requirements.
Yeah, it's difficult because when you do upgrade upper stories in an older building, there's a lot of code requirements that have to be met. There are some exceptions for historic buildings in the construction codes, and your Board of Construction Code Appeals can also grant some modifications as long as they show that they're meeting the intent of the provisions. But yes, often there's ADA and fire safety requirements that have to be met when you're redoing an upper story of an older building.
We have a particular property developer in the area, and I know Mayor knows who I'm talking about, that is always fighting about that
Oh, yeah.
particular issue. My other question was with regard to the historic district overlay. Who is the determiner of a building's historic value?
Okay, I'll have to look. I forget if it goes to zoning hearing board or city council, but the intent is that we looked at the historic blocks and we met with the staff of the Historical Society to get their input too. So we looked at the blocks that had the most significant buildings and included them in the overlay. If someone proposes a demolition, it would go to the board, and the board then would have, one of their criteria is whether the building's really significant or not. If someone's able to show the building was, it may be old, but it's ugly, or it's been changed so much over the years that it has no original features, then the board could decide that it's not worthy of protection and should be demolished, should be allowed to be demolished. If the applicant shows that there's a major public benefit to the new project that justifies a demolition, it can be approved. If there's no viable reuse of the building, it can be approved. If the building is in severe physical deterioration and can't be rehabbed, it can be approved. We're trying to avoid the thoughtless demolitions that occur where there was not a good reason.
Okay, thank you.
I have one additional question. You had mentioned the Bethlehem Steel buildings, that they were going to be for more heavy industrial sort of things. So I know in a lot of neighboring towns and cities, they've been converting those into housing. So does this allow for any of that sort of rehabilitation?
If you have an old industrial building that's immediately adjacent to a residential district, then the zoning hearing board can approve its conversion into housing. What we're trying to avoid is a situation where someone takes a building in the middle of an industrial area and tries to convert it into housing, because that causes conflicts. But if you're on the edges, you're basically moving the residential district. And that's a process we've used in a lot of cities. We've used it in Allentown and Bethlehem and Scranton. And it's worked out pretty well because, again, you're only talking about the edges of the district at that point.
Okay, thank you. And just one additional question. With the downtown, I know we visited Bethlehem and it's a beautiful city, so good job. And we love
I
their
can
downtown.
take all the credit.
We
Go
love their
ahead, please.
downtown and all of the outdoor seating that they have. And I know that we are limited in our downtown with more narrow sidewalks. So moving forward, does this account for any sort of allowance of outdoor seating? Or
It does have
what do you
provisions
think
for
going
sidewalk
forward with that?
cafes. Usually they're in the public right of way. So usually the city has to give a separate approval for use of the right of way. The one other point I'd mention is that there's a trend in the last month where communities are looking at flexible ways where they can deal with some of the virus concerns. One thing is to try to be a little more flexible about outdoor seating. Many of the restaurants, when they do open, will probably be limited to half their capacity indoors. If they have a parking lot, let them use half the parking lot for seating, because they won't need all their parking because they have half the seating. So I think there's some opportunity there just in administrative flexibility to allow people to help get through this crisis.
And if I may add, the city, we are working on an economic recovery plan, and that is something that we're looking at. We've done research of other cities that have implemented things like that. So that is something that we are currently looking at and will be proposing.
Thank you.
And-
I have a question, Wayne, Charlie, or the mayor. Has there been any substantial change to the signage section of the ordinance?
Yes.
I know the city had done a lot with signage, you know, a number of years back. Mayor, I don't even know if you were involved in that. So
I was.
kind of a broad question on signage.
Yes, the sign provisions did need an updating. One of the most controversial issues that we debated a lot was digital signs. I'd have to look up to see the details of that. I have it on another laptop next to me. I can look it up if need be. But yes, the sign provisions have been proposed to be updated.
Okay.
So basically, it's really regulating with the electronic signs that it's 8 seconds that it holds the message, and that it's not, you know,
Blinking and yeah.
flashing.
Okay, that's kind of what I was, good. All right, thank you.
And Charlie, just to clarify too, all the updates that you've done there, and you've done a real thorough job, they're including like modern day language that the courts like to hear, is that correct?
Yes, I'm not an attorney, but we do work with a lot of solicitors, and we've tested, you know, various language out over the years. We've tried to pay attention to what gets challenged and what gets upheld. I also testify in defensive ordinances and attacking ordinances, so I've learned a lot through that process. We've tried to give you the best, most defensible, most specific and clear language that we could come up with.
Okay, thank you. And Donna, we tried to do that to make it life a little easier for you too.
And easier for the board, the zoning hearing, and for applicants. You know, you want things, the law is supposed to be predictable. And that's our goal. People should know when they buy a property what they're allowed to do, and it should be clear what's allowed.
Yes, I think the modern day clarification, making more things black and white rather than a big area gray, moves us really into the present time where we should be with this too. Thank you.
And a lot more definitions in part of that process too, to make it more.
Good.
Oh, I just read this. Flashing, blinking, twinkling, animated, scrolling, rotating, or moving signs of any type are prohibited. Flashing lights visible from a street shall not be used to attract attention to the business. I'm thinking of the rope lighting that surrounds some of the storefronts downtown. So that would not be allowed.
If it blinks, it's not allowed. If it
They do.
flashes,
They sort of they
if it's just
one another.
plain lighting, it's allowed.
If it's display lighting, it's allowed.
If it's constant lighting, it's allowed. So you can outline your windows with lights.
Okay, but yeah, these do run
Flash.
and they flash, so that would be okay.
They have to adjust them so that they're constant.
Constant. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much, Charlie, for logging on with us. We really appreciate
Thank you
your
very
time.
much. And, you know, the mayor has my email. If you have any other questions or my phone number, you're welcome to give me a call individually too.
Okay.
If not, we'll
Thank
see
you.
you June 18th.
Yes, I have that written down. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you,
Bye-bye.
Charlie. Okay, moving on, we have a department update from our Director of Community and Economic Development, Miss Janelle. It's your turn.
Okay, I have to hop over to my other screen to do the report, so just a second. Okay, so as you can see from the several resolutions on the agenda, that are being posed at today's meeting, the Community and Economic Development Office has been very busy. In addition to normal projects and programs, my office administrates a large majority of my time has been working on content, marketing, surveys, and programming to aid, prepare, and prevent the spread of COVID-19. In addition to the mayor and all other departments, specifically, this is what Community and Economic Development has been doing as it relates to COVID-19. I've been working with WellSpan and Reach to put together important messaging in English and Spanish. You may have seen some of these messages on social media, like what to do when someone in your household is sick, safety tips to follow when carpooling to work, know the symptoms and when to seek medical attention, and more. That same committee, we held an event at Covenant United Methodist on Monday, May 11th. At this event, we handed out over 600 masks, hand sanitizers, important COVID-19 safety information, toothbrushes, jump ropes, WIC, and 211 information. We also had bilingual healthcare workers there to answer any questions. This committee is working together to plan a similar event. The city has been creating weekly COVID-19 updates. We have also created surveys to get a better idea of how COVID-19 has really affected the businesses and landlords in the city. I've been working with the Lebanon County Economic Development Corporation on creating a website for the Lebanon County Economic Recovery Task Force. I have also been participating in weekly cross-sector calls to stay up to date and connect with the community organizations, what their needs are, and how we can work together. Moving forward, we are working on creating a page on the city's website to have COVID-19 related information, including the recovery plan the mayor mentioned, financial assistance, and CDC resources, and more. This is just a brief overview of what my office has been working on. If you have any questions or ideas, please let me know.
Okay, thank you very much, Janelle. I know you've been really, really busy with all the goings on in the last 2 months. Anyone have any questions for Janelle?
Our buses have been continuing to run. Is that right, Janelle? Here we go.
You said the buses?
Yeah, are they continuing their runs?
Mayor, I believe Lebanon Transit has continued. Is that correct? I thought they were.
Lebanon Transit's been posting on Facebook. They had some adjustments to their schedules, but they've been posting almost every week, weekly, any kind of adjustments and their schedules all the time. So they are running, but maybe in a modified schedule in certain areas.
And I did see that they were increasing like sanitation and things like that. Wow.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, I know that they said that a lot of transmission happens in meat packing plants. And I know that a lot of our residents work in the chicken processing facilities out north of us. And you had also mentioned carpooling and how that's obviously you cannot distance in a car if you're carpooling. So I didn't know if there was any way that with what you're working on, if you could tie in the public transportation and maybe work with the plants that they could get the people maybe on buses instead to go to work so that they're not in such close quarters. I don't know if that's a possibility, like a partnership that you could forge to help people at least distance to and from work in that way.
That's something that we can look into with the committee, because there's a bunch of us. So that's definitely something we can look into. We've also been, and Guadalupe has been a super big help, but the messaging we've been putting together, we did include about meat processing plants for an example of how the workspace should look. And Guadalupe has actually gone with her volunteers to these facilities to hand out masks and the additional information that we put together. And another reason why we really want to have another one of these events, we want to have it a little more in the evening so people who are working at those plants and have day shifts can also have the opportunity to get masks and information.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just want to say that Janelle has been doing an outstanding job. She's been working really hard, Melissa and Janelle, but Janelle's really been on the front lines with a lot of these things. So thank you, Janelle.
You're welcome.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions for Janelle? Okay, thank you for the department update. Hang in there and continue to do a good job. We have 6 different communications tonight to go through. The first is from Mayor Sherry Capello informing council of the appointment of Dr. Mary Ann Bartley to the Land Bank to fill the unexpired term of Craig Gates effective April 15th. Mayor, you want to just tell us, I know there's a reason why, tell us.
So Craig Gates formerly served on the land bank position since its inception. He served in the role of civic organization. Basically, the land bank consists of the County Redevelopment Authority members, county treasurer, real estate appraisal industry representative, the city planning commission, and then someone from a city civic organization. Craig accepted an appointment onto the zoning hearing board, and the municipality's planning code does not allow you to serve on the zoning hearing board and in any appointed or elected position in the city. So he needed to choose one or the other, and he wanted to be on the zoning hearing board. So we needed to choose someone else to serve in the role of civic organization. Dr. Bartley was involved with the city when we first started planning the land bank and was very supportive of it. And she's also a member very involved with the Rotary Club. So we thought she would be a good choice. So she said that she's definitely interested and willing to serve in that role.
Okay, we want to thank Dr. Bartley for her willingness to serve and for Craig Gates for continuing to be an outstanding citizen for our town of Lebanon. Thank you. Next, communications, Mayor Sherry Capello informing council of the reappointment of Harriet Ferrin, James Snell, and Larry Stoller to the Housing Board of Appeals for a 5-year term effective May 1st, 2020. And informing council of the reappointment of Fire Commissioner Dwayne Troutman as an ex officio member for a 5-year term effective May 1st, 2020. Mayor?
Yes, so the Housing Board of Appeals is for anyone that would like to appoint a regulation of the property maintenance code that was adopted by the city of Lebanon. And there's the fire commissioner serves as an ex officio member due to his, of course, expertise in not only property maintenance, but the fire code as well. So these individuals actually have served on the Board of Appeals, I believe, since it was first commenced. So it's just a simple renewal.
Okay. Thank you. Again, we appreciate their willingness to serve. Next on communications, we have next communication is from the City of Lebanon Planning Commission recommending the adoption of the proposed zoning ordinance. And I understand that with this new zoning ordinance that we're looking at, this was also looked over by the City Planning Commission, correct, Mayor?
Yes, that is actually a requirement of the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code that prior to the city holding a public hearing and potentially adopting a zoning ordinance or an amendment to a zoning ordinance, that you must obtain recommendation from not only the local municipalities planning commission, but also your county planning agency, which to us is the Lebanon County Planning Department.
Okay, and that takes us to our next communication, and it's from Julie Shaney, Executive Director of the Lebanon County Planning Department, supporting the adoption of the proposed zoning ordinance. So all those commissions and planning all fell into place.
Yes.
Okay. Our next communication is from Yasmin Garmain, Acting Secretary of Transportation of PennDOT, transmitting notice of the 2020 liquid fuels tax fund payment in the amount of $773,144.73. Mayor?
So, yeah, so under the provisions of law, excuse me, these payments are based on the total miles of locally owned roads and streets in the municipality, plus the most recent US Census figure, which for us is 25,477. Last year in 2019, we received a little more than 794,000. So this is quite a decrease in the amount that we are proposed to, or we actually did receive already. Again, we have about, it's based on miles of streets in the road in the city, excuse me. We have almost 97 miles of streets in the city. That's pretty many, especially compared to other municipalities in the county. And that includes turnback mileage of a little over 9 miles, which the next communication talks about the turnback allocation.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this? Okay, then that takes us to our next communication, also from Yasmin Germain, the Acting Secretary of Transportation of PennDOT, transmitting notice of the 2020 road turnback annual maintenance payment in the amount of $37,240.
So this also is an annual payment. It is the exact same amount each year. It does not vary like our the Act 44 allocations do vary. This is $4,000 per mile beginning the first full year after the roads were returned. These are state roads that were turned back to the city. They give us a little bit of maintenance money for them. And again, we have a little over 9 miles in the turnback program.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, then that wraps up our communications. We have 6 resolutions tonight on our agenda. So here we go. The first resolution is authorizing the proper officials of the City of Lebanon to file a grant application with the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for the construction of a pavilion and restrooms at Coleman Memorial Park and for a connector trail in Coleman Memorial Park from 22nd Street to Airgood Drive. Mayor, could you bring us up to
Sure.
date on that a little?
So the total project cost for this is, for this grant application is $351,500. Now this is a 50-50 match. For the Coleman Memorial Park Board, their project is a pavilion with restrooms. That project is $170,000. Their match, which they have that secured, is $85,000. The city's part of this grant application is the connector spur. Now, this is only a portion of that entire project. This is for the portion inside the park that would actually be the trail portion of it. This is not, this would have to be phased because of the cost of it. This does not include the part that would extend into North Lebanon Township and would actually go along the north side of Union Canal Drive from Coleman Memorial Park to Union Canal Park. That would be another phase. This here, this portion is an existing trail that needs to be upgraded and the bridge replaced and some improvements made to it. And that portion is $181,500 and our match would be $99,750.
Okay. Any questions from council on this? Any questions from the public or media?
No.
Okay, who would like to take this resolution?
I wouldn't mind taking that, Wayne.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morales. Okay, our next resolution is supporting the County of Lebanon's filing of a grant application with the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for funding of Phase 1 of improvements to the John E. Wengert Memorial Park located in the city of Lebanon and authorizing the mayor of the city of Lebanon to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of Lebanon, the County of Lebanon, Lebanon Valley Rail Trails Incorporated, and the Lebanon Valley Conservancy. Okay. Mayor, could you tell us a little bit about this, please?
Sure, thank you. So the city is partnering with the county, the Lebanon Valley Rails to Trails, and the Lebanon Valley Conservancy for the development of the John E. Wengert Memorial Park. We talked about this in a prior meeting. That park would be located between where the rail trail bridge crosses and goes out to 422 right near Maribel's. So it would go from there to 16th Street and be on the north side of Chestnut Street, right across from the Lebanon Catholic schools. And then right up along the Quiddy. So the county has filed a grant application with DCNR for funding of phase 1 of the improvements to the John E. Wengert Memorial Park. The majority of this project is actually on city-owned land, and the city has agreed to accept the responsibilities for maintenance of the park as stipulated in the MOU, which I'll get to that. The Rail Trail and Conservancy would also have some maintenance responsibilities, but the county is basically granting an easement and whatever their partnership is with the rail trail program for the rail trail conversing or traversing through there. So the memorandum of understanding lays out that we would all grant easements for the different areas for the rail trail and the park itself. The city would pick up trash year-round from the park. We would haul debris away from the United Way Day of Caring or the spring cleanup. We would mow the promenade area bi-weekly during grass cutting season. And we would do some leaf pickup in the fall. So that is what we agreed to do. We anticipate looking at the cost of summer help and fall leaf pickup, seasonal maintenance worker help. The cost of that would be, and the trash, of course, it would be under $10,000, around $10,000 or a little less. So that would be our commitment to the project. And then the Rail Trail and Conservancy would mow along the rail trail. They would make any repairs or maintenance to picnic tables and trash receptacles, the fitness areas. They're proposing to do a traffic garden element and a possible, in another phase, entertainment area that would have stonework around it. So any of the hardscaping type requirements, they would maintain that, not the city. The Conservancy would basically help with park cleanup, spring plantings of any new trees or plants, and again, help with the maintenance of the hardscape items.
Okay. Any questions from council?
I have a quick question. Is there going to be a pavilion in that park? Is that
They
part
are
of the plan?
proposing to have a pavilion that would, when you come off of Chestnut Street closest to Maribel's, there's like a lower area. That would be where the trailhead or the parking lot would be. And then the rail trail would extend from where it is currently on the north side of the parking lot, and it would be a winding trail heading to the west to 16th and Chestnut. And then eventually North Cornwall Township is applying for grants, and another park system would be in the same general area in North Cornwall Township until you get to 22nd Street. And then the MPO has been working with the state to build a bridge, a pedestrian bridge in that area along 22nd Street. And the rail trail would actually cross Cumberland Street at 22nd Street and potentially go through the mall and or around the mall and eventually connect to the Union Canal Park. And that's why all of these pieces fit together and why it's so important. For over the past year or more, we've been applying in partnerships with, the school district and our neighbors to work on the pedestrian walkway from Northwest Elementary School, through the city, through West Lebanon Township, working with North Lebanon Township and Coleman Park Board to improve the connector spur and then continue the rail trail. Well, it wouldn't be the rail trail, it would be the city's trail from Coleman to Union Canal Park. And then another phase of the rail trail from the city going through the Johnny Wengert Memorial Park, North Cornwall Townships Park, back onto the rail trail and connecting to Union Canal Park, which eventually will have over 20 miles of rail trail through our county, which is a tremendous asset for all of the residents of not only Lebanon City, but the county of Lebanon.
Yeah, lots of working parts. Thank you for all of that. Is there any chance that the city would be renting the pavilion, sort of like you do rentals of the pavilions at Stavers or anything like that?
Yeah, that hasn't been finalized yet with the partners, but that's something that the Conservancy had talked about doing to help cover some of the cost of maintenance of the hardscape items.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? Any
And
questions
Mayor,
from?
I'm
Go
sorry, Wayne.
No, go
And
ahead.
Mayor, we also have the opportunity there where the trail actually ends now at Cumberland of continuing that north and possibly linking that up with Lehman Street, where it was originally going to go before
Yes.
the Wengert Park, actually.
Yes.
So there's more options as well, which
Yes,
could
all
be,
these
could be
pieces-
really exciting.
Yes, very exciting. All of these pieces fit together because the grants that were approved. Now, we had applied for another grant, but correct me if I'm wrong, Robin. I don't think when I say we, our partners, got that, but that was to extend along the north side of Lehman Street to 22nd Street and then north on 22nd Street to Union Canal. So Drive. So yes, it would be the perfect storm if it all works out. So we just have to wait and see.
Great.
Any questions from the?
Wayne, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Wayne, I do. Mayor, did the Norfolk Southern, did they have a change of, I know that they were kind of opposed to this potential, extension of the rail trail through their property. Have they had a change of heart or something?
They have not had a change of heart, and this avoids using their rail bed. And originally, before Johnny Wengert Memorial Park was even a thought in John's mind, we were going to take the rail trail from near Chestnut Street and use it's actually on county land, but it's an existing bridge that the rail trail stops at the south side of 422, right next to Wolf's, and near the PennDOT building. And also on the other side would be Norfolk Southern's rail, an extension of a rail bed. Now, they're saying that it's an active rail bed, but we're uncertain of that. But if they say it's active, but we wanted to maybe go off to the side of it, but we tried for several years. Tom Cote, John Fitz, we really had several meetings, phone calls, tried to use our state representatives to help us, and it just didn't go anywhere. So the rail trail, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they decided, okay, let's start working on other phases of the trail because we don't want to be held up by this. And so they started working in the northern end of the county. So now John Wengert came up with this idea to build this park and to go down to 22nd Street where there's a traffic signal, because it would be very dangerous to have a mid-block crossing on 422. So it was another, to be honest, it was another, obstacle to try and overcome crossing 422 with 4 lanes of travel, you know, with
Yeah.
pedestrians and kids on bikes and things.
We-
And we talked about going over 422. We talked about going under 422. And it was just really expensive. Joe? if you
Yeah,
wanna-
we actually worked on getting that piece for years, a couple years. And the park, Wengert Park actually came up and just kind of solved the problem for us. So we
Good.
were fortunate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Is there any questions from the public or
Mhm.
media on this? Okay, all right. Hearing none. Oh, who would like to take that resolution?
I can take it if no one wants.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Keller. Okay, our next resolution is authorizing the
Okay,
prop.
can you hold on 1 second?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's just Dwayne who has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was confused because I saw a hand raised, but I was like, that's not an.
I did have a question. We were given the plans for Wengert Memorial Park about a year or two ago, maybe longer. And are those changes or submissions that we made as department heads included as part of this plan? In particular, I'm more, my concern is we had requested an improved surface that would lead down to the ramp into the flood project. And secondly, we had requested a Knox box as part of that to open the gate, which will surely be locked. That was on the plans we had looked at and submitted some time ago. Is that included with this submission?
I'll have to check.
That was all I have.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm fairly sure, Commissioner, that they've taken into account that entrance, you know, down to the stream. So
Okay,
or
initially,
to the dike. Yeah.
initially they had
So-
I had requested that the surface be improved to at least allow for the width of an ambulance or a boat, and as you know, recently, Mr. Morales, we've had incidents that have required us to go down there with
Yes.
vehicles. And of course,
Yes.
unfortunately, debris or people out of there or people that are no longer with us, but it does serve a purpose, and I would rather not see a nice park built that we can't get through or have access
Yeah.
to.
Yeah. I'm 99% sure that they're leaving that there as an access point.
they're
Okay,
definitely leaving it there.
Okay, then I had left.
It can't be removed. It's definitely there, but I don't know if they're making improvements to that access road and if they're putting a lockbox on. I'd have to check.
Okay, well, that was my request because as you know, it's been a problem, seems more recently than not.
Well, I hate to say this, but I didn't know of your request.
Okay, well, we had talked about it the night it was presented to council. We had spoken about these two provisions, and that's the last.
Then I apologize. I don't remember your request.
That's fine.
Okay.
It would just be very important to be able to get an ambulance down there as close as possible, or other equipment, but mostly an ambulance to get a patient out of there.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll double check.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you for your concern. Those are important things.
Thank you. Just as important as my dark chocolate Wilbur buds at market.
Yes. Hey, and I did cover the bird too, okay?
Are you, Mr. Commissioner, are you back from your call?
I am not.
Okay,
I'm finished up though.
I'm keeping your video off then.
That's fine.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, our next resolution is authorizing the proper officials of the city of Lebanon to file a grant application with the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources for a feasibility study on the site of the footprint of Coleman Memorial Park Lother Memorial Water Complex. Mayor, could you help us out with this?
Sure. Pretty simply, Lori from DCNR had requested that we consider having a feasibility study conducted. And that would mainly be to obtain citizen input on what the best use of the area would be once the pool is demolished. This is a 50-50 match. It's, we're applying for $30,000. Our match would come from another grant that we've applied for with the county from the Marcellus Shale monies of $15,000. And if we do not receive that grant application, we would withdraw from the DCNR grant.
Okay. Any questions on this from council?
So this grant is just to cover the cost of the feasibility study.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
and that's actually, it's a pretty simple feasibility study. So, because typically they're at least double that or more.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions or comments from council? Any questions from the public or media?
No.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to take this resolution?
I'll take it,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miller.
of course.
Okay, that takes us to our next resolution. That's a resolution amending, this is amending resolution number 13, sessions 2016 to through 2017, approving an agreement between the City of Lebanon and the Metropolitan Edison for providing LED street lighting service in the City of Lebanon to specify the upgrade of 198 streetlights in the multiple areas of the City of Lebanon to LED street lighting. And that would be 141 sodium vapor and 57 mercury vapor streetlights. Okay,
So
Mayor.
basically, this is just a continuation of MedEd's upgrading lights in the city to LED.
Any questions from council? Okay. Okay, we can look forward to a brighter city. Who would like to take this resolution?
Wayne, I'll take that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wertz. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay, that takes us to the next resolution, which is amending Bill number 13, sessions 2018 to 2019, the same being the budget for fiscal year 2020, to correct change the title of an account number in the Bureau of Fire and to correct the budget amount for natural gas and electric in the Bureau of Fire. Mayor, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, this is something that the city clerk had requested, so I don't know if Cheryl wants to jump in, but we had converted at Station 3, we had converted from oil to gas, and there are different line item numbers for that type of heating source. So it was a matter of making that amendment.
Okay,
Cheryl, did you have anything to add to that?
I don't.
okay. So this is just a bookkeeping change. Correct.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right. Any questions from anybody?
Which one is Station 3? I'm sorry, I'm still learning.
Maple Street?
Maple. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Who would like to take that resolution?
I'll take it.
Take it.
Richard?
Richard, thank you. Mr. Wertz?
I tried, Richard, but I wasn't
Yeah.
quick enough on the mute.
I wasn't sure if that was your hand or the cat's paw.
I didn't hit I was still muted. Hey, I can see you over there.
Okay, all right. Our last resolution for tonight is amending the annual plan for the CDBG program with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the fiscal year 2019 to include an additional funding received for the response to COVID-19. And this is what we were discussing at the public hearing. Okay,
That's correct. And
Mary?
again, the total amount would be $391,481. 10% would be set aside to use for administration of the program. And again, this is all contingent upon HUD approval that we can use the monies as we requested, and also that HUD approves us receiving the monies.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Any questions or comments from the public or media?
No.
Okay, all right. Hearing none. Who would like to take that resolution?
I can take that one.
Okay, Ms. Keller, thank you very much. Okay, that wraps up the resolutions, and we go on to ordinances tonight. And we only have one ordinance, and that is to the adopting of the City of Lebanon zoning ordinance, dividing the City of Lebanon, Lebanon County, Pennsylvania, into zoning districts with varying regulations, permitting, prohibiting, and regulating the uses of land, water courses, and other bodies of water. The size, height, bulk, location, erection, construction, expansion, raising, removal, and use of structures, the areas and dimensions of land and water to be occupied by uses and structures, as well as open areas to be left unoccupied, establishing the maximum density and intensity of uses, providing for the administration and enforcement of this ordinance in accordance with the Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Code as amended, including provisions for special exception uses and variances to be administered by a zoning hearing board, and establishing provisions for the protections of certain natural features. And this would be an ordinance on introduction. Okay, Mayor?
I think with Charlie's presentation and what you just read, it basically sums it up. But I will say what the city clerk is proposing to do is similar to our sidewalk and curb provisions that we had adopted a year or so ago. We would attach the ordinance that was drafted by Charlie and just put our city documentation attached to that ordinance. So because it's such a large document, that's why it's not attached to this agenda. So once we have, again, he just gave those final editorial revisions last night. The committee will review those to make sure that they were done correctly, and then we will get another full-fledged copy out there for everyone.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, any questions or comments from the public or media?
No.
Okay, all right, hearing none, I will take that bill.
Okay.
Okay, okay, that completes the formal part of our agenda for tonight. Does anyone have any comments or questions for the good of the city?
I do.
Yep.
The only thing I'm going to ask is there any date set for the recycling center to be reopened?
So not exactly. What we're looking to do is possibly open it when we go to yellow, but we're going to be doing it differently, because something that we've been made aware of during the shutdown is that we received a lot of phone calls, and they were from people who were not residents of the city. And when recycling was first started, you could make some money off of the sale of recyclable materials. But over the years, with the changes and fluctuations in the market, most of the products in the recycling yard, in the recycling center, we have to pay to get rid of. I don't think it's fair for city residents to pay for the recyclables of other municipalities' residents, especially in the situation that we're in now. We need to cut as many things as we can possibly cut. So we are going to require people to register, and we're going to make it as easy as possible, because the part-time recycling attendant that works at the recycling yard is not going to have access to a computer out there that he could, sorry, just hold on a second. There, that he would be able to determine if someone is a city resident or not. So we're not going to require people to come in and show us ID or anything like that, but if they call us and give us their name and address, we'll figure something out, and we'll give them a little registration card. And then when they go to the recycling center, they can just show that card to the recycling attendant. But for right now, it is recycling is required. It's mandatory for curbside pickup, and the haulers are required to pick up recyclables with the trash. Some haulers don't charge an extra fee, or it's already incorporated into the fee that the person is paying. So they're actually not getting their money's worth if they don't allow the hauler to take their recyclables. And then some haulers charge a couple dollars extra to pick up the recyclables. But haulers are required to bi-weekly take the recyclables with the trash. So we're just telling people that call. There are a couple of items at the recycling center that typically are not picked up with standard trash pickup. And those particular items, if they still wanted to recycle them and they were an acceptable recyclable material at the Greater Lebanon Refuge Authority, they could go out there to the Greater Lebanon Refuge Authority. Now, it is accurate that the Greater Lebanon Refuge Authority does charge a fee for some of the things that are taken to their recycle area. But that's the cost of doing business. So that's why I would encourage people to put their commingles out with the trash, and you know, the additional items right now, either take them out to the Refuge Authority or save them and hold on to them until we open back up. But again, the majority of people that have been calling in are not city residents.
Okay.
Any
Thank
other
you.
any other questions or comments from council?
Just to add to that, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
The only reason why we may not open it up shortly is because I'm not finished with my recovery plan yet, and I'm also creating a COVID-19 budget. I'm hoping that I'll have both of these pretty much either in final draft form by this weekend, but we need to cut. We need to cut everything that we possibly can. It is dire.
Mhm.
And the first things we're going to cut are
Mhm.
everything that is not a necessity. And since people can get their recyclables picked up with their trash, to me, it's not a necessity. Is it something that we want to provide to our residents? Yes, but it's not a necessity. And right now, we have got to focus on survival. And that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mayor, speaking of spending a necessity, so I mean, obviously we don't know how long this is going to last with the red, yellow and all of these different phases, but I know that some beach towns have canceled their 4th of July fireworks. And I saw that in the budget, we're spending $3,000 on fireworks. I had heard that you do take donations that night, which helps to replenish the funding for the following year. So, you know, we're not necessarily going to be getting ahead with donations if we cancel it. But has any thought been given into what we're going to do with the fireworks display this year?
So we have been in contact with our company that performs the fireworks for us, and we have signed a contract with them. So we are contractually obligated for the fireworks. However, the owner of the company is an extremely compassionate and understanding person and is willing to work with us. So we've talked about, we have until June 15th. Cheryl, it is June 15th, correctly?
Yeah.
We have until June 15th to make a decision on whether we're canceling or not. Most likely, I was kind of waiting for this Friday to see what the governor would say. But I have a feeling that probably on the 4th of July, we still will not be in a position to have large gatherings. So we talked about possibly not allowing people into the park and not having a ground show and just having aerial. The only problem with that is then people would have to park along the streets or parks nearby in West Lebanon Township or the businesses in West Lebanon Township in order to see the fireworks. And if they stayed in their car, we could probably comply with guidelines that have been set by CDC or the governor and just plain safety. But in order to see the fireworks, you probably need to get out of your car. So if you get out of your car, now it's a gathering. So most likely what we'll do is we'll postpone it until Labor Day. And we were thinking about doing something to thank all of the sacrifices that have been made for COVID-19. And we thought we could do some type of tribute with the fireworks at that point. But again, that's most likely what we'll do.
So it's not a cost savings, but it'll still be better for a public health standpoint. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I did have a couple more things. And thank you for mentioning in your newsletter, I saw that you wrote about the porch pirates. I liked that. And it's been much better. So Chief, I just wanted to touch base with you. We haven't heard anything from neighbors. Have you found out who was doing it, or is there a reason why we haven't been seeing activity? Hopefully you found out who it is and it's just done with now.
No, we have not made an arrest, unfortunately.
Okay.
And so we don't know who is doing this, but we believe that part of the pressure that we put on the south side with the amount of extra patrols that we were utilizing may have pushed it to another area. But when we believed that occurred and thought that that's what happened, then that stopped as well. So we're not really sure what happened at this point, to be quite honest with you.
I don't. Okay. Neighbors had seen who it was and they said it sort of matched the description of the gentlemen that were found. So people are wondering if possibly.
That's an obvious connection that people will jump to.
I don't want to make conjectures, but yeah.
No, and we had thought that there might have been some belief that was occurring as well. But there were some reports of thefts that occurred after their passing.
Okay.
The issue is we had to determine whether or not those thefts were reported or the thefts occurred after their passing, or if they were just reported after the passing, and some of which were both. So we can't say that that those two gentlemen were actually the thieves. Okay,
thank you. And just quickly, because it is warm out and people are outside more, could you give a quick rundown about the noise ordinances? Are they 24 hours or is it 11 to 7? Is it 25 feet off the property or 50 feet? Is there any difference between an owner occupied property and a rental? Is there any point where a landlord would be cited for a nuisance property? Sorry, I know those were a lot.
Yeah, there's quite a few questions there. So it is 24/7. All right. There is a specific section within the ordinance that mentions the time frame. However, we don't typically utilize that because there's another section within the disorderly conduct ordinance. Any noise that is heard within 50 feet from the boundary of the property is then a chargeable offense. With either we have to hear it, or it has to be something that obviously is not just annoying to that one person, the neighbor. Okay, if the neighbor isn't going to be the victim and testify, it has to be something that's substantial. Otherwise, if the neighbor is the person that wants to testify, then it can be nearly anything, and we will first try to resolve it with communication and mediation between the neighbors before we cite. But if we have to cite, then we'll utilize the neighbor. If we don't see it or hear it because it's internally, the noise happening within the walls, the confines of the building, and we can't hear it outside. Another question you had there was landlords. Yes, if you're not an owner of the property, we will forward a disruptive conduct form. In fact, we just did that for a place that we went to, and we also cited that person for disorderly house. We were back there multiple times for noise complaints, and we issued citations for noise complaints. We completed disruptive conduct forms, sent them to Public Works for evaluation, Public Safety for evaluation. And then the owner, or the renter of the property, also received a disorderly house citation.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I just want to give a shout out to Officer Soliday. We had an interaction with him and it was fantastic. So it was our first meeting with him and he did a really, really good job. So thank you.
That's good to hear. I'll make sure that I pass it along to him.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from
Chief,
council?
I have a couple. Yes, I have something for the chief. I've noticed just more and more motorized scooters on the sidewalk and even on Cumberland Street and on the streets themselves. And this is, it just seems to be more and more prevalent lately. I've seen it, I just saw it today and going down the sidewalk. And I've just have a couple questions. Has there been any citations issued to any of these individuals when they're caught or apprehended? And also Monday afternoon, I went to this car wash behind 16th and Cumberland behind Kettering's, and there was no less than eight cars there with young males working on their cars, no social distancing, high-fiving, handshaking, and working on their cars. And it really concerned me. I was wondering if it's possible that you could patrol that lot periodically, have some of the officers check on that, because there was no less than 8 cars and they were all working and no social distancing, no masks whatsoever. And that to me is a concern.
Yeah, I'll try to hit all your questions as well.
Thanks.
So you're not allowed to be on a sidewalk with a motorized or non-motorized vehicle within the business district. So if that's occurring, we will need to address that. I haven't seen any citations for the scooters, but they are not subject to the vehicle code as a registered vehicle or any of those requirements. So they're not necessarily illegal. Maybe unsafe, but not illegal. I can check to see if we have issued citations, but I'm pretty sure that we have not. Car washes under the governor's order are determined to be essential and have been throughout the red phase. So people are able to attend a car wash and are able to wash their vehicles. The social distancing, you need to remember, is a recommendation, and it's something that is difficult to enforce, especially when we respond to some of these issues and we educate the people during our interaction on social distancing. Oftentimes the people that are together reside together or are family members and are often in proximity to each other on a regular basis. And so the social distancing is somewhat useless at that point. And you did say it was 16th and Cumberland, correct, sir?
Yes, behind Kettering's, the car wash. Behind
I will make sure we drive by there, absolutely.
Yeah, Chief.
It's city property.
Chief, I'd received some complaints about the 16th Street car wash for just a lot of people and a lot of noise, and also the one on North 7th Street also, down in the dip, So just to bring that to your attention.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council for the good of the city? Mayor, do we still have public or Laura with us?
Pam got off, but Laura is still there.
Okay, Miss Laura, do you have anything for us?
Yes, just to follow up on a question for Mayor Capello and or Chief Briner, with regard to the county making their decision to move Lebanon County into the yellow zone without state approval. I know, Mayor, you had issued that statement over the weekend about business owners checking, and I'm just curious to know, has there been any complaints or problems or anything that needed clarification because of the distinction between what the state approved and what the county commissioners did?
It was because of, that's why I put out the statement, because we did receive a lot of phone calls and emails asking, because people were confused. So that's why I put out that statement, because I felt I really needed to because of the questions. So basically, what we're doing is trying to educate people and do our best to, let them know the importance of social distancing and wearing a mask for, the safety of the general public. But we will not be enforcing any business uses that are not essential according to the governor's red phase because of, basically the position that's been taken. So, but we haven't, to my knowledge, Chief, unless you know differently, we have not received any complaints about businesses opening as if they were in a yellow. I'm not aware of any.
There haven't been any.
Yeah.
We've received some phone calls, as the mayor had just spoken of, that we needed to explain the red phase and the yellow phase and what the differences are, and have continued our education in that vein, and explained, as with the car wash, explain what is essential and what isn't essential under either phase.
And I can tell you, and I know that there's more to the governor's decision-making process, and tomorrow I'm sure he's gonna let us know, more about, what counties will be moved into yellow, but Joe can vouch here for me. As of today, with today's numbers, you have to, be 50 per 100,000 of population. And I'm not sure where the state came up with their number for our county's population, because I was using the most recent number publicized by the US Census Bureau, which is 141,793, because I have it memorized, because every day I check these numbers. And with that population, it would be 71 is the goal. That's the magic number. And today we were at 72. So I'm pretty excited that.
But again, Mayor, it's over a 14-day period.
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, you're saying we have to, so I went
Yes,
back.
we have to be below five positives a day for 14 days is what it would come down to.
On an average of 5.
Yes.
Right. So.
I mean, right today we're at 7.4 is what we reported today, 7.4. All right. Positive cases. So, I mean, we're there. I mean, again, what do I know? But flip a coin tomorrow. We could be told we're going to the yellow come next week. Possibly. I mean, Allegheny went into the yellow, or is going tomorrow, I guess, and they did not meet those metrics. So
There are other metrics involved with this as well. So,
And that's the part that I'd like more clarification on, but I think we're going to meet the one criteria. You know, the governor had indicated that contact tracing and testing was also part of the equation, but then he also
no one's contact tracing.
there were other things too. So
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to contact trace, but yeah. There's a whole number. There's a lot of different metrics involved with this that we're not privy to.
right. And that's the frustrating part. But if we were totally to go on the number of new cases, we are right about there. So that's encouraging.
Yes. Like I said, I think we can flip a coin tomorrow.
Yeah. So everybody.
I'm going to remain positive.
We need to get open. So safely, but we need to get open.
Any other questions?
I just appreciate your statement, Mayor, that you put out, and that you still made people understand, like, that you have to weigh all of the consequences and that we're not without repercussions from beyond Lebanon County. So I think that was good. And I think it's good to make sure our businesses know, you know, what they need to know in order to open safely. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we're going to call this meeting closed. We thank everybody for their patience for going through this long agenda and for their understanding and for this Zoom thing. I like personal contact with everybody, but thank you so much for being, and we're going to do this all over again Tuesday at 6:30. So we wish you all a wonderful Memorial Day. God bless and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Have a good weekend. See you.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Laura.